Welcome to the Vision Driven Basketball Training Podcast. Appreciate you guys tuning in, whether you're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube. Really glad to have you guys here. Gonna hop into it. Got a really loaded episode today, so I'm excited to get going. But first things first, if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, really appreciate if you left a review for me. And if you're on YouTube, drop a like. Make sure you're subscribed if you aren't already. And we'll hop right into it. So there's a few things I want to get into, this week. But the first thing is I want to talk and clarify a little bit on last week, because I got a lot of questions about kind of what I was talking about in terms of your schedule and everything, and how you should actually structure your workouts. Last week we talked about how you don't have to be LeBron, you don't have to be great at everything right away. At least you want to make sure that you become great at least a couple things, so that you have skills that could translate onto the court right away. So you can know if you get onto the court, you can do a couple things at a high level. And, regardless of where you're playing, who you're playing against, you're going to have a role that you can fill because you're able to do that. So, I want to clarify a little bit on what that means. I got a lot of questions about it. So you should pick, a few skills that you want to become great at. So that might be shooting, ball handling, finishing, we'll say those are your skills you want to choose. But what you don't want to do is you don't want to take an all or nothing approach to it. Okay, I think a lot of you guys are really overthinking it a little bit too much. A lot of guys are coming at me asking like, "Oh, should I do this week just shooting and next week just ball handling?" And we'll kind of hop into a little bit of why I don't recommend you do that. But essentially, all that you have to do is you just want your training to focus on those skills, but you still want to have game-like aspects to it. Okay, so if you look at like my NBA player workouts, for example, that's a great example of what it takes to actually, or what I mean by making sure that your workouts are focused on something, but also game specific, right? And all those NBA player workouts, we're usually focusing on a few skills that player is known for, right? But we're translating those into game-like movements, game-like situations where you're gonna have to combine a bunch of different skills, okay? And your training should be that way too. It can be game-like while still focusing on some specific skills. Okay, so for example, Monday might be ball handling mixed in with some game-like moves, right? So some dribble moves that simulate game actions, something like that. Okay, so you might have you might work on your ball handling, doing maybe some stationary stuff, then you translate into working on your between the leg crossover at different game situations, maybe going into a shot off that, into a step back, into attacking the rim, into, whatever you want it to be, a spin move maybe, right? You just want to take what you're doing and make it game-like, okay? So that might be Monday. Tuesday might be shooting with some ball handling, okay? You might get a lot of spot shots up, some game situation shots, mixed in with some ball handling stuff. Okay, that could be your workout. So now you're working on multiple skills, but those are still those a couple of those skills that you want to become great at. Okay, and then Wednesday could be similar to that. Maybe it's more ball handling with some more shooting, and then a couple of dribble moves added into that to kind of combine the two of those things. Okay, so again, you want to be creative with how you approach it, and in the perimeter score system, that's kind of what we do, where we have some workouts that are more broadly focused, where you're going to start off, you're going to go into some, basically essentially would be like a structure could be, you'll go into your dynamic warm-up, then you'll go into form shooting, then we might go into some light ball handling, then we might do some light finishing, then we might go with a lot of game shooting, okay? That might be the workout. But then the next day, you might have a workout where we're going to go dynamic warm-up, form shooting, you might have a little bit of light shooting, and then we might go into working strictly on some sort of dribble move. So maybe we're just working on the jab step that day and options out of the jab step, working on the double jab maybe, or working on inverted drag, whatever. But we're going to translate that stuff into game situations, so you're building those game-like moves that you can actually use while still developing your ability to handle the basketball, to shoot, and to finish. Okay, so we're working on all three of those things, but we're doing it in the context of an actual game situation so that it actually translates for you. So, and as we progress forward, we're going to continue to kind of ramp up the focus, and obviously as you move through it, you should be getting better. So that's what I also say is if you're going to plan out your workouts, make them gradually harder, make them gradually a little bit more detailed as you start to master some of these simple moves. So, obviously, I recommend you guys check out the perimeter score system. But if you are just want to do your own thing, that's how I recommend you would structure whatever sort of program you're going to do. Is make sure that you have those skills you want to work on, but make sure you design it in a way that you can actually start to work on those skills in a game situation sort of setting. That's how you're going to see the most results when it comes to actually you in games. And I wouldn't recommend doing a week on, week off thing. There was a question that I got where, guys were asking me, hey, should I do ball handling this week and then shooting next week and then finishing the week after that? No, like I wouldn't recommend doing that. And that's just because, look, at the end of the day, a big mistake players make is that they just do drills that are going to get them better at doing drills. Like they aren't doing drills that are actually going to get them better at playing basketball, like in a game. And basically all that means is that your drills, like the stuff you're doing, should actually have some sort of way that it's going to translate into the games. Okay? When you're in a game, you're not just going to use one skill at a time. Okay? You aren't just going to use your ball handling. You aren't just going to use your shooting. You aren't just going to use your finishing. You're going to have to be able to switch between those three and combine them. You might have to go into a crossover into a pull-up, or a crossover into a finish, or you might have to go with a jab into a hesitation sort of flow into a veer step finish. Like, there's a bunch of different things you're going to have to be able to combine in order to be a successful player. And if you just focus on doing one thing at a time, you're never going to be able to learn how to implement all those skills at the same time. So I recommend you don't do that. I recommend that, again, you can have different portions of your workout that are focused on something specific. Maybe you start off with some stationary ball handling, then maybe some spot-up shooting. But then at some point, you should get into some sort of game-like situation shooting. So, you're having shooting where you're going off of a crossover into your shot or into a finish, different stuff like that, where you're actually, out on the wing, coming off a ball screen or something like that, where you're actually simulating what you might see in a game, so you can put those skills sort of together. And essentially what we do in the perimeter score system is we start off by isolating a certain skill. So we're going to get the footwork down, we're going to get the shot down, whatever it needs to be, we're going to isolate it so we have the actual technique, the form, the footwork, we have that down. Then we're going to implement that into a game. So maybe we're working on the turn dribble. We're going to work on that in sort of a stationary setting so we can get the footwork down and the actual movement down. Then once we have that, we're going to translate it into a game situation so that you actually can be able to use that when it comes time to pull it out in a game. And it's not just something that you worked on stationary, but you didn't have any context for when you're going to use it. That's important when it comes to actually developing your skills. So kind of to recap, you want to pick a few skills and work on those most of the time, okay? So not every workout needs to be just focused on one skill because you use multiple skills in a game, right? So you can use more than one skill at a time, essentially. You want to build your workouts up to a point where you can start to do, sort of game situation drills that actually mimic what you're going to see in games. Because again, you don't want to just become better at practicing. You would become better as a basketball player in games, and the only way you do that is by becoming better at those game situations you're going to see. So and again, if you look at my NBA player workouts, they're built a lot like that, so where we can take skills and we can implement them into game situation, different drills like that, and that's where you're going to see the results. So again, if you want something that I know that was a lot, but if you want something that lays all this out for you step by step, then I highly recommend that you guys check out the perimeter score system. It's not available publicly right now. I'm not promoting it publicly right now, but if you send me a DM on Instagram at Vision Driven Basketball, then I can hook you up with that at a discount. So if you guys again send me a DM on Instagram, then if you're interested, then we get into that where all this stuff I just talked about is already built into it. So all you got to do is follow it. But moving on from that. A lot of what I want to talk about today comes from a DM that I got a couple days ago. Like I always say, guys, you have questions for me, make sure you DM me. Basically the whole podcast today is just stuff that, and that's how I want it to be going forward. I want it to just be stuff that people ask me. Because like I said before, there's a lot of things that, I get asked about that I can't necessarily always answer back in a DM or in a YouTube comment. So, that's the best way to reach me with questions. Because sometimes even with YouTube, I get so many comments on YouTube sometimes they can start to kind of get lost in the mix. So the best way to make sure that I see your question and have the best chance of answering it on the podcast, make sure you DM me on Instagram at Vision Driven Basketball. So essentially this player DM'd me and he was saying that he struggles to be consistent, he struggles to work hard, So he asked me, how he can push himself every day and how he can have an unmatched work ethic. Those were his words. I'm going to answer this from two different angles, and one of them I think should be pretty obvious, and the other one is going to kind of give you guys a little bit more practical advice. But obviously I got to get this out of the way first, because if we don't talk about this, then what else? The rest of what I talk about doesn't even matter. So, here's the first thing. There's nothing that I can tell you. There's nothing that anybody out there can tell you. Nothing that the best trainer in the world can tell you that is going to make you really care about basketball. And, essentially what I mean by that is that at the end of the day, if you want to be good at basketball, you're going to put the work in, because that's the only way to become good at it. There's no other way to do that. So if you really care about it and you want to be good at it, you're going to have the drive to actually do the work. And, the thing is, if you don't actually have the drive to do the work, then you have to kind of ask yourself, like, do I really care? Like, do I really care about the game of basketball if I don't actually want to do the work? Because to me, it's like, if you know the only way to get where I want to get to, I want to be great at the game of basketball, the only way to do that is to do the work. Okay? You have to ask yourself, is that worth it? Is it worth the pain of having to do workouts? Is it worth the pain of having to get up and go outside? Is it worth the pain of having to do all that? If you can say yes, then chances are you really do care about it. But if it's still no, then chances are you're kind of lukewarm about it. So ask yourself that first of all, because again, nothing I can say can change that for you. That's something you have to be honest with yourself about. And to me, the other thing is that it's so you can tell me, coach, like, I want to be great, I want to do this, I want to do that, but at the end of the day, it's all about your actions. It's not about your words at all. Okay, what you say doesn't matter. What you do does matter. And, nobody cares about what you say, because people say a lot of things. Okay, people say a lot of things, and, a lot of times it's become easy for us to kind of tune people out, because people will just say whatever. People say whatever to get views on Instagram. They say whatever to get likes. They say whatever to get followers. That's what people do these days. So by you telling me that you want something, but you don't put in any of the action to actually get it, I'm looking at the actions that you're doing. Okay, that's what I care about. You can, again, like, and I'll say this with players too. It's like players will say, like, oh, I want to be great, but then they won't get in the gym. They're like, hey, coach, like, I really want to have a great season next year. And then it's like they won't get in the gym for it, though. There's always some sort of excuse, like, oh, coach, can't make it today, got homework, can't make it today, coach, got to do this, I'm not saying stuff doesn't happen in life, some stuff doesn't pop up, but when it's repeated, you're always having an excuse for why you can't do something. Then the question comes, like, dude, like, do you really care? Because the case can be made that for you, it's more of a convenience thing, and I think that's what this whole this whole quarantine pandemic thing has proven, is like, who plays basketball out of convenience and who plays it because they actually care about it. Right? Who was playing basketball before because all their friends were playing? They could get into a gym every day with their friends and play basketball, and it was cool. Got to go on bus rides with your teammates, got to stop at restaurants after the game. That was the fun part. Now that isn't happening, is that lack of convenience, is that an excuse for you to not work as hard? That's the kind of the question that, again, you have to ask yourself. So, I actually I had a couple conversations this week with players who about guys who post their workouts, right? Guys who post when they're in the gym, not necessarily their workouts, but guys who always are, like, updating when they're in the gym. The guys who are posting pictures on Instagram of them, after a workout, hashtag don't sleep, all that stuff, right? And I kind of wanted to relate this too, because I think this kind of has two sides to it. I'm sure a lot of you guys know Drew Hanlon, who is, one of the top NBA trainers in the world. He's fantastic at what he does. One of the guys that I look up to, that I've learned a ton from since I was in middle school. I've been learning from Drew. So, he's really one of the GOATs. And, I remember hearing him talk about how he wasn't posting on his Snapchat or his Instagram about, when he was in the gym anymore, because he used to do it all the time. And, he was talking about how, like, for him, it's like, I'm in the gym every day. Like, even if I don't post it, I'm in the gym every day from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. with my guys. Like, we get in there at 6. I'm working with guys from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. every day. And to him, it was like, it's not even about posting it, because guys know I'm there. Like you know I'm there, right? So, for a lot of players, it sometimes can feel like their highlight is going to the gym or the court to work out and then posting about it. That's like they might not even get in any sort of work, but it's like they can go show everybody, oh, I was in the gym today, right? Like, and another guy like that, Damian Lillard, who kind of said the same thing. People, obviously, Damian Lillard has this whole rap thing too, where he's put out a couple albums so far. I think he's pretty decent too, and I think he gets better every album that he's dropped so far. He's only dropped 2 or 3 albums. I think every album's gotten better. So, but with him, people were like, typical people do is like, oh, Dame, we always see you rapping, but we never see videos of you in the gym working. Like, what's going on with that? And so people trying to kind of call him out, be like, yo, aren't you supposed to be a basketball player? Like, why don't you ever post your workouts? And he was saying that, like, that I just don't do that. Like, I go to the gym and I work, and you see my results on the court. And obviously, we see Dame, just like I said, his rap gets better every time. Every year he gets better on the court. And we don't see him. We don't see it necessarily, but what we do see is the results after. We see what he does when the season starts. We see the results then. Okay, so those guys understand that in order to see results, that they need to put the time in. It isn't just a show thing, right? It isn't just like what people see. Again, what I kind of relate this back to words, right? Like, you can portray something on Instagram, but if your actions don't back that up, then eventually you're going to get exposed. Eventually, when the lights turn on and we actually see if you were putting in the work, everyone's going to know whether or not that was true. It's the same thing with words, right? You can tell me that you're working, you can tell me that you're doing this, that, but if the actions don't back that up, at some point, you're going to get exposed. Okay? So again, you have to understand that you saying you want something doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is you actually doing it. And, I'm not saying, I want to be clear about this. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with posting your workouts. There's, to each their own. Like, some people do it. Obviously, you guys see LeBron, and he's posting about his workouts all the time. And like I said, in my opinion, that's the GOAT right there. That's the best to ever do it. And, a lot of other guys post their workouts on Instagram. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that at all. One of my guys actually in the perimeter score system, shout out to EJ. He's posting his stuff all the time. And, the thing with him, though, is that I know that he's working, right? And the kid can hoop, so I know that he really is putting in the work. Okay, the issue becomes when it's about posting and not about actually doing the work, right? You can have both, but if you decide that you just care about the posts, well, then at that point, it becomes, what side of the line are you on, okay? So you got to make sure that you actually evaluate yourself. Are you really doing what you're saying you're doing, or is it something else, okay? Because, again, we will know. We will know at some point when we all get to see it. Okay, and so for me, all that to say, when I get DMs about how to have unmatched work ethic, to me it's like there is no how to have that. You either have that or you don't. Okay, you either want it, or you either want to be great at basketball or you don't want to. And if you don't want to, you're not gonna have the work. And listen, there's nothing wrong with that. Okay, it's not for everybody. Like, not everybody is gonna do that. If you have something else that you rather would do, nothing wrong with that at all. I say go for it. But if you really do say that you want this, then that work ethic should be a byproduct of you actually having those goals. So that's kind of what I want to transition into, though, is because I feel like this is another topic that guys struggle with. And, and we talk about this all the time, though, is having a clear goal, a clear vision of what you want, because that itself is what can drive you. Right? I think when I get a question like this, a lot of it has to do with this guy probably doesn't have an actual clear vision of what he wants to get out of the game of basketball. He probably likes playing. He probably wants to be better than his friends. He probably wants to play on his school team, but he probably doesn't have any sort of like strict definition of what he wants. And we're actually going to get into this more down the line. I got another great question about kind of goals and all that stuff, which I think is really going to be an interesting topic to talk about. So, but essentially what you got to ask yourself is, first of all, you got to have an end goal with basketball, or at least a long-term goal. Okay, it doesn't have to be the end goal, but it has to be a long-term goal, right? You have to ask yourself, what do I want? Like, what do I want to get out of this down, like, long-term? What is my goal? And once you have that, then you need to ask yourself if the way that you're preparing, the way that you're training right now is putting you in a position to get that goal. And if the answer is no, then you either need to change your goal, make it smaller, or you need to change the way that you work. Okay? Because again, you can't have one or the other. It's got to be both. If you have that big goal, you got to have the work ethic to match it. And if you don't have the work ethic to match it, you can't have the big goal because it's just not realistic. Okay? It's a daydream. All right? It's not an actual dream that you might actually have the chance of achieving. It's a daydream. So ask yourself, if you want to push yourself, if you want to be motivated, I hate that word motivated, but at this point, you're asking me for motivation. And again, that goes back to the other thing. This is why it's not motivation-driven basketball, okay? Like, I've had people who've asked me to, do, hey, coach, can you post a motivational speech on YouTube or Instagram or something like that? And, I'm not completely against that. I know, there are a lot of guys who do that sort of stuff that I think it's cool. But for me, it's I'm just not a big fan, because to me, I feel like a lot of that stuff is it just wears off so quickly. I think when you're intrinsically driven, right? I think it's just you're going to work better than if you have to be motivated by a video or something like that. Again, not to say that that's necessarily a bad thing, to watch motivational videos. I don't think it is. I think there's a lot of stuff you can learn from that. But at the same time, you shouldn't have to rely on it. Okay, so it's either you have to change the way that you work at something, or you have to change your goal. Okay, that's what it comes down to at the end of the day. And you need to ask yourself, what can I do that can help my team win, and how do I develop those things at a high level? Okay, if you do that, again, you're going to be you're going to have a role that's very, very difficult for coaches to replace. You're going to have to play, because guys are going to, coaches need guys like that who have skills that help the team win and can do those skills at a high level. Okay, and the only way to get those things is to put in the necessary amount of work. There's no other way around it. Okay, so once you recognize that this is my goal, this is how I get to that goal, and the only way I actually achieve those steps is by putting in the necessary amount of work. The work ethic is going to take care of itself at that point. And if it doesn't, again, ask yourself, do I actually care about this? Because if it doesn't, then that's probably the answer. Okay, so you've got to answer that yourself. And I know this might seem a little bit vague, right? But it should be, though, because this is something that is this is an individual thing. You have to be able to answer these questions for yourself. Because at the end of the day, your coaches, your teammates, they're on their own journey. Obviously, you guys are on a team, but each member of that team has to be able to carry their own weight, and that comes from each individual person being able to have goals that they actually chase after. So then, when they all come together, they make each other better, and that's how you have a great team right there. Okay, so that's the question you got to ask for yourself. And if you decide not to, then only person you're really harming is yourself in the long run. So, I got another question on Instagram from my guy Flame Hoops, and he was asking, does hard work pay off? And we talked a little bit about this, me and him, but to me this is a multi-layered question, and actually it's an interesting conversation to have too. I think there's a lot of ways that this can go, but the answer is yes and no. Okay, the answer is yes and no. So I think that yes, hard work does pay off. But also, it's not just hard work that pays off. It's not only about the hard work, okay? Because, listen, you can work as hard as you want to. You can work harder than everybody else, but you might not be 7 feet tall, okay? You might not be, 260 pounds with a 40-inch vertical. You just might not be, okay? And you might lose somebody who is, right? And all that hard work, you can still lose. So if we look at it surface level, no, it does not always pay. Hard work does not always pay off. So FIBA estimated that there were 450 million basketball players around the world. Okay, that's their estimate. So we'll go ahead and we'll just assume that that's the number, right? Keep it easy for us. 450 million basketball players around the world. NBA players are the top 450 of those guys. So that would mean that you would need to be in the top 0.0000001% of basketball players in the world to even make an NBA roster. Just to be the 15th guy on the roster who's never going to play, you need to be in the top 0.00001% 5% of those guys. That's 5 zeros after that decimal, which is just an unreal number right there. Okay, so just think about how great you have to be in that number. So obviously, look, amongst those 450 guys, how much different talent-wise are we talking, right? I mean, talent-wise, aside from the top guys, guys like LeBron, Kobe, guys, Kevin Durant, Steph Curry, guys who are at the very, very top, the talent difference between those 450 is not that much, right? There's not that much of a difference in talent. And also, in order to get to that 450, you've got to work really hard. Now, some guys work harder than others. Again, a guy like LeBron, Kobe, Michael Jordan, those guys were just on a whole different level in terms of the way that they worked. Okay, but all these guys in the NBA, with the exception of a few, work really ridiculously hard to get to where they are. Ridiculously hard. Okay, harder than most people work at it, and obviously it shows. That's how they're in the top 450. Okay, but so what separates those guys? What separates a guy, an upper echelon guy? We'll take a guy like like a Chris Middleton, right? What separates him from a guy who obviously Chris Middleton, all-star, great player for the Bucks, obviously the Bucks one of the best teams in the NBA. What separates a guy like that from, a guy who's the, 9th or 10th guy on a team? Well, to me, and you hear a lot of guys talk about this, but a lot of it has to do with the way that these guys work, okay? Because these guys all work hard, but what separates guys when they get to the league is what guys are meticulous with how they prepare, what guys are incredibly detailed with what they put into their bodies, right? Which guys are still, regardless of any success that they have, still not satisfied with what they've gotten so far. Those tend to be the guys who end up having long, successful careers and becoming the best because they're obsessed with how they work. It's not just about the hard work, because all those guys work hard, but it's also about how they approach the game, what approach they take, and essentially, I mean, that's why you see these guys with these massive team, like, LeBron has a team of guys, Kawhi Leonard has a team of guys, right? Where you've got your strength guy, you got your nutrition guy, you got your chef, you got your whatever, like you got obviously your whole business side of the team. You got guys to take care of everything for you so that you can just focus on making sure that the product you put on the floor is the best it can possibly be, right? That's why these guys are willing to invest. Obviously, it's not cheap to invest in a full-time chef or to invest in a full-time strength coach, right? But these guys understand that if they want to be the best out of the 450 million players in the world, they have to be very, very smart and detailed in how they prepare. Okay? So if you want to be great, take that sort of example of make sure the work you're putting in is smart. It can't just be that you're working hard, because a lot of guys are working hard, but it's also about the type of work that you put in. Okay? So, and at the same time, me saying all that, I do believe that hard work does pay off all the time. I think there is, if you look at it in a certain way, hard work will always pay off. And here's why. So learning to work hard and to dedicate yourself to something is being able to dedicate your focus, your time, your energy into something, that in itself is a skill and one of the most valuable skills you can have in life. Okay? Not only is that going to help you in basketball to become the best you can possibly be, but it's literally going to help develop the mindset that it's going to take to succeed in anything that you do in life. Okay? And that goes far outside of just basketball, but obviously we can develop that through the game of basketball. So I think that working hard at it, even if you're doing the wrong things, even if the drills you're doing aren't perfect, even if the way you do things isn't perfect, just by you working hard and being committed to something, you're going to develop skills that are going to help you to succeed. And I think what it comes next to, and actually this is something I'll be talking about in the mental toughness masterclass with my guys, is you can't not settling for doing things that aren't as great as it can possibly be. So essentially, you don't want to just be like, oh, you know what, I'm going to do this thing, might or might not get me results, whatever, I'll just do it. The guys who are the best, the guys saying, no, I got to figure out what the best thing to do is. I'm going to do the research, I'm going to put the time in, and I'm going to focus myself to doing this. guys who are obsessed with the process, the obsessed with maximizing the time that they have. Those are the guys who are the most successful down the line. But even if you don't do that, even if you just work hard at something, you don't work smart at it, there's nothing that you do that necessarily I even just talked about now. You just work hard, you're going to develop the ability to translate that into other areas of your life, and you become a more successful person in general. Okay? And so for me, that's why I've never understood people who can't get into sports. And I get it, like everyone has their thing. I don't like to draw or paint. Not my thing. I don't like to hunt or fish. Not my thing. Like plenty of people are into those things. And obviously, you can learn how to work hard through those things too. I'm not saying that you don't have to work hard to be good at painting or to be good at hunting or whatever. Okay, but what I'm saying is that sports are just different because you're thrown into the fire, right? Obviously, a sport like basketball, it's a team setting. You have to learn how to work with your teammates, how to motivate your teammates, how to take coaching, how to be teachable, right? How to all these skills that you need. I think that when people aren't involved in sports, they're missing out on a crucial area of development in life. Okay, and so think about the ability to bring 100% every day, right? Whether or not you feel like it or not, you got to bring that same sort of effort every day, even if you just lost by 20 the night before and you got a 9 a.m. practice on a Saturday the next morning. Like, you got to be able to come and bring it the next day. That's a valuable skill to have when, if you're in business and, you lose a sponsorship deal that was worth $2 million. You got to get up the next day. You got to do the same. You got to keep working, right? It doesn't stop just because something bad happened. Okay. You don't get to quit. You don't get to feel bad. You just got to get up and you got to do it. That takes mental toughness to be able to do, and it takes dedication and that mindset that you're going to reach towards a goal and you're never going to give up regardless of the adversity that you face. That is something that translates to every area of life, and the guys who have that are the ones who are successful, which is why you see a lot of these athletes who go on become successful in other areas of life. You take guys like, I was listening to Sean Merriman, who played in the NFL, was a Pro Bowler, great player for the Chargers. He's got his whole clothing brand now. Like, you got guys who go out and they become entrepreneurs in these other sort of areas. And, look at LeBron. LeBron is going to become he's going to be a billionaire. Like, he's going to be a billionaire. He already has a $1 billion deal with Nike. The only question is, when exactly will he cross $1 billion? Right? He learned those sort of business skills through the game of basketball. And because of that, when he retires, I don't think it's out of the question to say LeBron's going to be an NBA owner one day if he wants to do that. Like, LeBron, like there's so much on the table he's going to be able to do. And a lot of these NBA guys are the same exact way, right? A lot of these guys, when they retire, are going to have things set up for them. I know Steph is another guy who's like that. Like, you got guys who set themselves up. Tom Brady, look at him as well, with the whole TB12 thing. That's a guy who is going to make a massive impact, and it all starts with the skills he developed through the sport of football. Okay, so I think sports are so crucial when it comes to helping guys develop those things. And I talked about it on the podcast before. I believe it was episode 2, talking about how to play at the college level, kind of my backstory and everything. But since my goal since I was 12 years old was to play college basketball. And, for a lot of reasons that a lot of those reasons were out of my control, I wasn't able to do that. And, again, if you want to know more about that specifically, check out podcast 2. I believe it's podcast 2. Check that out. And so for me, it became like, how do I view that now? Okay. Even though all the hard work that I put in initially didn't pay off, right? My payoff, I thought, was I want to go play in college. Like, that's what I want, right? That's why I put the work in, but that didn't happen. So do I look at that as the hard work didn't pay off? Well, no, because then all this stuff happened. I have people who are like, hey, can you train me, right? I had people who came up to me out of nowhere. And I'm like, well, I know a lot from my own training. I've worked with a lot of great trainers. I've worked with a lot of great players before. So, and obviously through my own career, like I know how to, I know how I need to help guys approach the game, and I know it can help guys with that. So all of a sudden, the skills that I learned through my own playing career, which I didn't get to my goal, those skills help me propel me into what I'm doing now, right? So now all the stuff that I learned, I can help give to you guys as well. So now, from what I see, that hard work has 100% paid off. 100% paid off, and just in a way that I didn't expect, a way that I didn't see. Also, that's just the actual skill part of it. If I had done something else, like if this whole vision-driven basketball thing wasn't a thing, I know that I would be doing something else, and I would be able to succeed at that too, because the skills that I had to learn, being able to lose, being able to lose my starting spot, still work hard to get it back, like that's stuff that that is real. I mean, that's real life stuff you got to learn right there. Okay, so I know that whatever adversity I face, like as long as I stick to what I'm doing, I can get past it. And not only that, I'm going to use it to make me better. Okay, because down the line, now I'm going to be more and more confident in my ability to overcome anything that comes my way. So that in itself, the mindset that you develop through the game of basketball, through working hard at it, I mean, that right there, that's something that translates to everything. I mean, your ability to be like, you know what, I'm going to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning so I can go to the gym before school starts. Then when school's up, I'm going to go lift, right? Then at night, I'm going to get up some more shots. Like, that work ethic translates to every other area of life, When I've got to be up to 4 o'clock in the morning editing something, like, it is what it is. If I got to be up at 9 o'clock the next morning to film something else, whatever. Like, that's something that developed through the game of basketball, okay? And, that's why I think sports are so incredibly important for society, but especially for schools, right? I think having sports in schools is just such an important thing because, that's where kids learn those life skills, right? It's not, learning is not just through the classroom. I had a good talk with my cousin yesterday actually about, learning and, because he was talking about how he's trying to read more because he wanted to become, he wanted to actually enjoy learning. And that's such a great point. Once you start to actually find things you enjoy doing and you enjoy learning about, you actually can become great at learning, right? And I think sports, that's the avenue. A lot of kids don't really care much about school. They don't really care about their math class or their English class. They do care about basketball, though. So you can teach those kids life skills through sports, through basketball. That's going to help them just as much as any math class is going to help them, okay, when we talk about them actually being successful down the line. So, which, I mean, again, it's sad to see a lot of these athletic programs getting shut down at the collegiate level because of the whole coronavirus thing. I know the University of Cincinnati just closed down their men's soccer program. Central Michigan just shut down their track and field program. Eastern Carolina just canceled their swimming and diving and their tennis teams. Like it really is sad to see because sports are such an important part of society. So, again, we've talked about this before, but like people will be like, oh man, it's just sports. Like, why do people care? Like, you guys can't go. Like, you guys need your sports. Sports is such a massive part of life. The competition, the skills that you learn. It's not just about sports. It's about everything else associated with it. So, for me, I think the ultimate thing I can leave you with is that, there will always be something that you gain when you work hard. It might not be exactly what you thought you wanted or thought that you would get, but there will always be something that you gain when you have the ability to work hard at something. So I got another question from Ryan, and this is actually, I really want to talk about this. This is a great question that I got, and I think that this is another thing that can really help out a lot of guys. So, he asked me, he said, it's a question, what do you think the difference is between being real to yourself and underachieving? So, for example, I want to play college basketball, but I feel like I'm not good enough to play. So I'm trying to get into coaching after high school. Am I being real to myself or am I underachieving? And this is a great question. And it's an honest question too, which I appreciate. So, you have, I'll approach it from a couple of different angles. The first thing off the bat is that you need to have goals that motivate you, okay? You have to find a balance, but the difference is you need to find a balance between extremely high goals and actual reality, okay? I think a very dangerous idea that is being sold to players these days, young players especially, is that if you just work as hard as possible, you'll achieve whatever you want. That's just not how it works. It's not how life works, not how anything works. Okay, again, we talked about how just because you work hard doesn't mean you're going to see the same results as somebody else. This is not how it works. So, The issue is not having goals that are big or daunting or maybe not possible, like maybe won't happen. The issue is when you put all your eggs into that basket, into something that probably is not going to happen. Okay, because then at the end of the day, it's like, what are you left with if that doesn't happen for you? So for most players, it's just kind of a backwards view on things. And for example, I get DMs multiple times a day from players who will just straight up ask me how they can make the NBA. That's their question. It isn't, coach, like, I need to become a better shooter. What do I do? I need to become a better ball handler. I get those questions too, obviously. But I get questions every day from guys who are just like, coach, what do I need to do to make the NBA? First of all, I have never seen you play. I don't know you. Like, I don't know. I don't even know if you're good. So I can't answer that question for you. I can give you a baseline response, which I always do. People do this at an elite level. But that doesn't really help you, because at the end of the day, like we talked about it, top 0.0000001% of basketball players in the NBA. That is the number. Now, obviously, there's more pro spots in terms of, like, guys who play in the G League or play in Europe or Asia or anywhere that there's basketball. There's opportunities for you, but even still, I mean, probably, like, if you combine all the professional spots in the world, it's probably still 0.00008% of basketball players can play somewhere, right? Maybe only 4 zeros and then a 0.1 this time, but like still a very minuscule amount of people. Like I said, I mean, that's just a loaded question, because like I said, there's just not, like, if I haven't seen you play, then I can't tell you that. And here's the thing, like, if you can do everything right and you can still be the 451st best player, where you're elite, like you're better at basketball than most people are at anything that they will ever do, right? And you still might be the first guy out of the NBA. That can just be how it is. So to me, if a player asks, how do I make the NBA? A better question they should be asking is, how can I maximize my skills and become the best player I can possibly be? That's what you need to ask yourself, and it's a much better question. To me, it's like, don't worry about, coach, what do I need to do to go to the NBA, right? Like, a lot of you guys haven't even played high school basketball. A lot of you guys haven't even, like, excelled at high school basketball, right? A lot of you guys haven't. I'll get guys who will ask me how to make it to the NBA and they haven't played in college. It's like, how do you expect to go to the NBA when you haven't played college basketball? Like, you're just gonna go to the NBA? Like, that's just not how it works, right? I'm not saying you have to play college basketball to be a pro. I mean, there's guys who borderline did or didn't, like, whatever. But I think that experience in itself, to me, is like, dude, you got to get on a college roster if you want to do that. Like, go get some experience, right? I'll have a guy be like, oh, I haven't played any organized basketball, but I want to make it to the NBA. Well, you have to ask yourself, like, how realistic is that right now? Am I actually where I need to be? No, you're probably not. So that's a better question to ask yourself. Shift your focus, and this is what I really want to get to. Shift your focus onto things you control, okay? Listen, you can do everything right, and you can still be the 451st, 452nd best player, okay? So worrying about being top 450 in the world, you don't control that. All you control is the work you put in. Okay, all you control is your commitment to get in the gym and work hard every day. And guess what? If you do those things correctly, you work at a high level, you're committed to it, maybe you get to the NBA. Maybe you do, but maybe you don't. Okay, but you have to be. Here's what you need to do. You need to understand that if you put in all the work that you can, you work as hard as you possibly can, you still don't make it. At least you know, right? At least you can say, you know what? I did everything I could do. I worked hard for this. And again, like I said, hard work always pays off, right? There's always a silver lining, even if you don't get what you want initially. You'll know, okay? But it all starts with focus on what you control. You control how you work. You control if you work smart. You control if you're consistent. You control those things. You don't control who's better than you. You don't, okay? Focus on your own game, and that is how you're going to be able to maximize your skills and actually get to where you want to get to. So, to me, it's like, this is a whole big thing. Stop comparing yourself to other players. Stop worrying about who's getting posted on Ball's Life for overtime. That literally means nothing. Don't even worry about that at all. All that matters is what you're doing. Only thing you should care about is what you're doing. Tunnel vision, what you have. You got to have tunnel vision, okay? So, when it comes to having realistic goals, I want to find a balance though. Okay. So you have to have goals that still motivate you and push you to work at it. But at the end of the day, your ultimate goal is becoming the best player you can possibly be. The ultimate goal is maximizing your skills, because that's the only way to put yourself in a position down the line to actually be the best player you can possibly be. So on the other end of the spectrum, though, how do you know if you're underachieving? How do you know if your goals aren't as high as they should be? To me, this is a again, it's a balance. But I also think it's kind of simple. If your goals, if you know for 100% certain for a fact you can achieve what your goal is, it's not a high enough goal. It's not. If you are 100% certain you can do that, you're 100% certain that you can achieve that, it's not a big enough goal. There's no point in having a goal that you know you can get, because that's not going to push you, right? And what I mean by that is that there needs to be some sort of pressure for you, okay? You need to be unsure of whether or not you can actually do it, because that way you won't be leaving anything on the table, okay? Because maybe if you set yourself a goal and you easily get it, well, you don't know if you could have gotten something even better if you had aimed a little bit higher, right? If you had aimed for something that was way more difficult, maybe you wouldn't have gotten that thing, but you might have gotten way farther than you actually got with your easy goal, okay? So think about it that way. Your goal should definitely be something that pushes you, that you're unsure of whether or not you can actually do it, okay? And I kind of got this idea from Kobe, because Kobe was talking about when post retirement, he was saying where he was talking about his process for how he makes his films and his book and everything like that, all his creative endeavors he was a part of. He was talking about bringing guys onto his team and like how he finds people for his team, and he was saying, when I interview people, like I don't hire people who are 100% sure that they can do what they can reach what their goals are, right? Like if I have a guy who comes in, he's like, oh yeah, for sure, like this is my vision for this project. I know I can do it. It's gonna be easy for sure, no question, no problem. I'll get it done. Kobe's like, I'd rather have a guy who's kind of unsure. He's like, you know what, like Kobe, I mean, I think I really want to do this, but like I'm not 100% sure we're gonna be able to do it. Like this is tough. Like that's the guys that Kobe wanted, because he realized that those are the guys he's gonna be able to get the most out of, because they're going to have to push themselves to be the best they can possibly be. That's how you make the best possible documentary, the best possible book. All that stuff he was doing, he needed to have guys where it's just pushing themselves beyond to where they might have even thought that they could get to, because that was how he could get the best possible outcome from those guys. So, Kobe understood that's how you get the most out of somebody, right? They have to be challenged, and it shouldn't be easy. It shouldn't feel easy. And there's no point living life doing things that are just easy for you, right? That you don't have to actually have any sort of pressure, any risk. You got to take risk, okay? And, we talk about goal setting all the time. I mean, episode 1 was all about how you shouldn't tell people your goals, right? We talked about, how to actually set goals that are going to help you to actually reach them. And if you haven't seen that one, make sure you guys check out episode 1. But in that episode, I talked about how when you have your goals, you shouldn't tell people those things. Okay, and because of that, like the reason for that essentially was because when your goals are your own, it's you have ownership over them. Okay, so kind of what I was talking about with guys who when you guys are just going there and post their workouts, then they feel like that's all they need to do, right? Because once they let people know what they're doing, what they want, all of a sudden it's like it almost gives you a sense of like, I already did this thing, and it's just kind of how our brains work. Okay, so keeping those goals to yourself, that gives you more of an ownership over them, and you're going to realize to yourself, like, I haven't done this yet. Like, I have to work to get it because I haven't done it, okay? So that was kind of my thought behind that. But, that's why I have a ton of goals that I don't share. Like, I don't tell you guys that. I don't tell anybody that, just because they're mine, right? Like, I see them happening, but I want to, we can talk about them once they're done, but until that point, I'm just working on those things. Okay, but one goal that I will share with you guys that is kind of a long-term thing for me is I want to help develop one future NBA player, right? That's my goal right now. Whether that be through online, through my YouTube, through the perimeter score system, or any of my online training stuff, whether that be through in-person training, I want to develop one NBA player. I want to have one NBA player who goes up using my stuff, using my training that I'm in contact with, that makes to the NBA because of the stuff that I'm doing. Okay. Now, am I there yet? No, I'm not there yet. I don't think I'm there yet. Maybe. I mean, we won't know until down the line, but that's a goal. And obviously, I just share with you the numbers: 450 out of 450 million players. 450 of them are in the NBA. So obviously, odds are not in my favor at all, right? But here's the thing: I don't even care. Like if I don't reach that goal, but I helped develop 40 college players, did I fail? No, I didn't fail because I still developed 40 college players, right? So all of a sudden, things become very, very different when you look at that perspective. I might set a high goal for myself, but if I don't achieve it, I already know that what I will achieve, even if it's technically not that goal, is going to be great. Okay, so I'm not even worried about not getting to what I want to get to, because I already know, regardless of the things I'm going to get, I'm going to be happy with the outcome that I'll see. So, but it was a good conversation with Ryan, and we talked about also another thing we talked about the college level as well. And, how essentially I kind of brought up to how all these guys talk about the NBA, but, a lot of them haven't played college basketball yet. So, what I'll say is, and kind of what we're talking about is that a lot of times, the best players in your area, there's a good chance they're going to play at the D3 level. So we're kind of discussing, the D3, D2, D1, JUCO, like these levels, but also trying to understand how, what the differences were. Because here's the thing. We talked about this before too. The top 5% of high school seniors who play basketball are going to play at the college level. 5% of them will play. Okay? So for you, what you need to understand about that is that if you're in that top 5%, like, you can hoop. You can play. You're a really, really good player if you're in that top 5%. And again, there's not a huge difference between... Now, obviously, the top guys there, those high majors, the guys who are going one and done, they're on a different level from everybody else. Everyone else, though, very, very similar in terms of skill. There's going to be some differences in size and athleticism, but skill-wise, there's not a big difference between that guy who's at the top of that, maybe in the top 2%, and the guy who's in the top 5%, right? Like, there's not a huge difference right there. So, few of those top 5%, though, are gonna play at the D1 level. Probably like, I believe it was 0.07 or 0.7 or 0.8 of those guys out of those 5% play at the D1 level. Most of the guys are playing at the D3 or D2 level, and so the chances are, unless you play in a great basketball area, or a great basketball, you go to a great basketball school, the best players in your area, most of them are probably going to the D3 level. Most of them probably are. And here's the thing: I play with a ton of, not a ton, but I play with numerous D1 guys throughout. I played with and against numerous D1 guys between actual like games, between between tournaments, between camps, stuff like that. I've played against a bunch of different Division I players, and I was thinking about this yesterday. I was kind of making a list of guys I played against. The three best players I've played with or against are all at the D1 level right now. So one of them plays at Delaware, one of them plays at Princeton, one of them plays at St. Francis. And those are the three best players I've ever played with or against, just in terms of their skill, athleticism, combination of those things. But the next two players in my top 5 are both at the D3 level, right? So one of them I played AAU with, he ended up, he was a dude who just could flat out score. Like, he could just get buckets on the perimeter. He was just, I saw him just light teams up when we played AAU. He would just light teams up, and it didn't matter because teams knew what he could do. He would just light dudes up. And, we would go, we'd play against some D1 talent, and he'd hold his own. And, there were games where he would dominate against guys who were going to the D1 level. And he ended up. I know he had some low major interests at the D1 level, but he ended up going to a D3 school, and he ends up. I believe he led his conference in scoring this past year as a sophomore, and he's a guy who you look at and it's like, this guy can just straight up hoop. Like, he is a great player. And again, you can see it kind of paying off down the line. But a guy and here's the thing, I have D1 guys on my list below him in terms of how good I think they are. Like, I think he's better than some of those guys, right? And he went to the D3 level. The next guy, and honestly, you could probably switch these guys 4 or 5, whatever you want it to be. The next guy, also on the AAU team, plays at the D3 level now. And he was another guy who was just, first team All-State in my state, like just crazy good. And so he's another guy at the D3 level, and he this past year had 45 points in the first round of the NCAA tournament at the D3 level. Scored 45 points in a college game, right? And as a sophomore, like both of those guys are, I could see them being All-American level players at the D3 level over the next couple of years. And those, I mean, like I said, there are D1 guys who I would put below them that I played against. Like that's how good. Like people don't understand how good D3 basketball is. Like depending on where you play, it is great. And the thing that I'll tell people is that, like, you know, regardless of the level, if you can hoop, you can hoop. You know, there are plenty of guys who go pro from the D3 level. I don't know how many of you guys watch Devontae Friga, right, on YouTube, but he's another D3 guy, and he's going pro. Like, if you can hoop, you can hoop, okay? And another guy that you can look at, Duncan Robinson, who plays for the Heat now, but he went to Williams College in Massachusetts, the only school that he was giving him a spot out of he did a post-grad year. He had a D3 offer from Williams College. So goes there, has a great freshman year, then gets recruited by a bunch of different D1 schools, ends up going to Michigan on a full scholarship his next year. First, I believe he was the second player ever to go from a D3 school to a full scholarship at a D1 school. Goes to Michigan, helps lead them to a national title game appearance, then goes to the Miami Heat and breaks the record for most three-pointers in a game. Now he's playing in the NBA on a $1.4 million guaranteed contract. Like, that guy started off at the D3 level. So there's a huge misconception when it comes to the levels of basketball where guys think, oh, D3 basketball is not that good. No, it's great, guys. Like, any level of college basketball is just, there's a lot of great players there. So, in fact, to illustrate this more, there are D3 rosters, elite D3 rosters that are better than some low major D1 rosters. That's just a fact. There are some D3 rosters that are better than D1 rosters, okay? And we can kind of do a deep dive into that. But, like, I actually did some research on this a while ago on, you know, what the worst D1 team is in the country. And I'm thinking about that school right now. I can name you 10 D3s right now who would beat that school. 10 D3s who would beat that D1 school. It's not about the level, guys. It's about the program that you actually are playing at. So that's just kind of, you know, what I was thinking of. A ton of D3 rosters that are better than D2 rosters. A ton of them. A ton of those elite schools are better than D2 schools in terms of the actual basketball being played there. So forget about the level of college basketball. If you can play in the college level, you can hoop. That's just as simple as it is. And, you know, that's why I always tell players to, I got another DM, you know, I believe it was last week or maybe this week. It was a player was asking me, he was like, hey coach, like I want to be a pro one day, which here's the thing, guys. I talked about this whole, like, guys say, hey, I want to play in the NBA. Like, I'll help you guys out. I'll answer your questions when you have specific. This was a good question you asked me. He said, coach, like, what can I do to put myself in a position to be a pro one day? Okay. That's a good question. I told him, I was like, listen, you need to make sure that you focus on these. I gave him a couple of skills he needed to have. And then I told him, I was like, listen, you need to make sure that you set yourself up to get to the best position for the college level. Keep your grades up. Like, give yourself the most amount of opportunities you have, because again, if you can play, the right eyes will find you in terms of the pro level. But when it comes to college, make sure you have the most amount of options possible. So a lot of these elite D3 basketball schools are also elite academic schools, right? So a school like Johns Hopkins, for example, that's one of them. A lot of schools in my state that are elite D3s are also the best academic schools. And so obviously you want to play there, you've got to have great grades. So what I say to players is make sure you keep your grades up, because then when it comes time for recruiting, all that stuff, you have the most amount of options. And again, a lot of times you can end up playing at an elite basketball school that's also an elite academic school. And that all stems from you putting in the work in the classroom and not slacking off because you feel like, oh, D1 or bust. Don't be that kid who's D1 or bust. Don't do that. Take what options you have given to you and figure out what's going to be the best of the best interest for you. But again, put yourself in the best position possible to play at the next level. Okay? That's kind of what it comes down to. So, Again, I don't want to come across as like saying like, oh, you can't play at D1. Like, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying understand that the level is just not everything. Okay, it's not the whole thing. And also, there are guys who are going to play D2 basketball, who are going to play D3 basketball, who are going to get paid a lot of money to play basketball one day. Simple as that. Okay, whether that's in America, overseas, there are guys who are going to make a living playing at the D2, D3 level, going to go on and they're going to get paid for it. Okay? That's the goal, right? Get paid. So if that's your goal, make sure, again, you set yourself up to have the best chance to do that by obviously working on your skills. Obviously, we'll go back to where we started, making sure that you are working smart, you are taking the right approach to the game, and you have your goals, your vision that you're going after. You set goals that are going to push you, and at the same time, you with those skills that you're working on, you develop your ability to impact winning, and you excel in the role that you have. Okay, you excel in those skills that you need to excel in that role, and combine that with the stuff off the court. So you keep your grades up. Now you have all these opportunities for yourself, and at the end of the day, that's when you can prove yourself. You can hoop. That's what it comes down to. So that kind of is how I'm going to tie everything full circle. Like I always say, guys, you have questions for me, DM me on Instagram. Like I said earlier, you can leave a comment on YouTube, but it's easier for me to kind of keep all that stuff organized because I got a lot of questions. It's easier for me to keep that organized if you DM me on Instagram at Vision Driven Basketball. And kind of like I was saying before, at the beginning of the podcast, when we're talking about your schedule and what your workout should actually look like, how you should build them. If you, like I said, if you want something that's going to have that all laid out for you, make sure you check out the perimeter scorer system. Like I said, I'm not publicly promoting it right now. So if you're interested in that, make sure you guys send me a DM on Instagram at Vision Driven Basketball, and I can get you guys set up with a discount on that. And so, but I mean, moving forward, gonna have a probably Paul George workout dropping tomorrow as of when you guys see this, and we'll continue to move on. So again, questions, if you're on iTunes, make sure you guys drop a review. Would appreciate that. YouTube, like, subscribe, and tell your friends. And I'll talk to you guys soon. Peace. I want to hook you guys up with my free Elite Perimeter Scorer workout. This workout is going to help you develop the skills that you need to be an elite scorer on the perimeter. And I'm going to send it to you guys completely free. All you need to do is click the top link in my description below. I'll get that right to you.